All right, welcome, y'all. We're excited to get started. Thank you so much for being here. We know there's so much happening in the world right now, both inside and outside. So it's always such a pleasure to gather and be in connection with one another and discuss what's going on in a real, intentional way. Before we dive in, I'm going to pass it off to our language justice team just to introduce themselves. I want to acknowledge and thank our language and justice team for interpreting tonight's call and make a note that the interpretation information is in the chat. And I will pass it over to Glashonda to get us started in that.
Buenas tardes, bienvenidos a todos. Gracias por estar aquí esta noche. Estamos muy emocionados de tenerles acá con nosotros y entendemos que hay demasiadas cosas que están pasando en el mundo el día de hoy. Así que gracias por su presencia en esta llamada esta noche. Vamos ahora a pasar la palabra al equipo de interpretación para explicarles cómo conectarse a la función de interpretación. Esta reunión será en inglés y español y habrá interpretación simultánea. Para usar la función de interpretación, si está usando o conectando a través de una computadora, busca el globito en la parte inferior de su pantalla o los tres puntitos más. Busca interpretación de idiomas y después selecciona su idioma preferido. Si está conectando a través de un smartphone o un tableta, busca los tres puntitos más interpretación de idiomas y después selecciona su idioma preferido. Y no olvides darle clic a listo o finalizar para activar la función. This meeting will be in English and Spanish with simultaneous interpretation. To listen to the interpretation, if you are connecting through a computer, look for the globe at the bottom of your screen, or you will see 3 dots and more. Select language interpretation and the language that you prefer, or English or Spanish. If you're connecting from a smartphone or a tablet, you will also look for 3 dots or more. select language interpretation, and choose your preferred language. Using a mobile device, you will need to select Done to activate the interpretation on your device. You will see this appear on your screen momentarily once the host activates interpretation. Thank you so much. And I pass it back to you, Saskia.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you to our team. Welcome again, y'all, to the SMA Say of the South call. My name is Saskia. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a member of the SMA Freedom and Survival Work Team. Really excited to be here. I'll be one of your facilitators tonight. We welcome you to continue to engage in the chat. Briefly, just want to go over a few logistics for the night. These calls are recorded and shared with the SMA base and participants on this call and beyond. Please stay muted unless you're speaking to avoid sound interference. And lastly, if you need support, please identify participants assigned as tech. And with that, we want to go right into grounding to get settled in the space. And I'll pass it off to Wendy and Steph.
Excellent. Welcome to everybody. Thank you, Saskia. Thank you, interpreters. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. It's beautiful to see everybody's faces, and we're excited to be able to dive into a roundtable conversation about movement governance in a really challenging time. So we will get to that, but we first wanted to invite people to participate with us in a little bit of grounding and to recognize a loss that we have felt in our Southern Movement Assembly family, and as a critical part of our Southern organizing practice, we want to do two things, and I think we're going to invite folks to come off camera for a second just to and pull a slide to recognize our brother that we have lost, Kiongozi Mapinduzi, who we know as Kian. And we want to recognize this loss, and we also want to honor the legacy of our ancestors with a grounding practice that we learned from Kian and a lot of the people that we work with at Spirit House and other formations across the South. Kian came to the Southern Movement Assembly over 8 years ago and became part of our family as an organizer, a facilitator, and a bridge builder. He was a bright and glorious light, and he made the SMA his home. And we're proud to have been a place and have built a place for him to practice liberation, to practice his love, to practice his organizing skills and talents and gifts for the people. He came from Mobile, Alabama, and he participated in the Movement Governance Roundtable in Chattanooga at the SMA 6 way back in 2016 as we started to craft the Southern Movement Blueprint. So he has been a part of and touched every part of the Southern Movement Assembly for many, many years. And we lost him on August 16th, and we're grieving his loss. And we know that so many of us are grieving loved ones. And so we want to hold that grief together because we know we're stronger together, that he brought us together, and that his legacy is going to continue to carry us forward.
Thank you, Steph. We are going to, again, we're going to encourage everyone who's not an interpreter to turn your camera off, as I'm going to do, as we honor Kian. And I'm going to offer a prayer, and that is to be said to whatever belief system you have, whatever faith you have, to the ancestors, to those who are way too young to become ancestors like him. And then I'm going to guide us through some deep breaths and a practice that we have at Alternate Roots where we repeat, "We remember you." Thank you. Thank you for your work, which engages me in an internal debate between right and reward, and stretches me towards responsibility to those who pay for our work and those who cannot pay because they have no work. For justice, which repairs the devastations of poverty. For liberty, which extends to the captives of violence. For healing, which binds up the broken-bodied and the brokenhearted. For bread broken for all the hungry earth. For good news of love, which is stronger than death. And for peace, for all to sit under the fig trees and not be afraid. For your calling, for your life, we are grateful. So I'm going to encourage everyone to just breathe deeply, as Keon always reminded us to do. So many of us breathe in little short breaths. So if you can put your feet on the ground or whatever your body wants to do today, whatever your body can do today, to where you feel rooted. And maybe it helps to put a hand on your belly and maybe a hand on your chest. And just as the rhythm, whatever rhythm that your body has today, just elongate those breaths. So as we remember Keon, may you also remember the people that are your kindred, your family, who become ancestors, who ground us and guide us in this work. And I'll say a few words and then we'll say, we remember you. For Keon, we remember you. For connectivity and compassion, we remember you. For reminding us that we cannot be so concerned with the enemy that we forget about us. Keon, we remember you. For reminding us that care is a mandate. We remember you. For reminding us that rest is a mandate. We remember you. For reminding us that joy is a mandate. We remember you. For reminding us that laughter is a mandate. We remember you. For always looking good in a great outfit with a hat. That too is a mandate. We remember you. For reminding us that gratitude is a mandate. We remember you. And we are grateful, forever grateful for you, Keon. We remember you. So
Thank
as we continue to breathe and we continue to remember, we also know what else we would need to do is to work. We are always grateful and grounded in this work. So thank y'all for taking those moments with us. I'll send it back to you, Steph.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. Just appreciate folks' grace and spirit. And in Keon's spirit, as Wendy remembered, he brought both beautiful seriousness and beautiful joy to this work. And so I want to just introduce the Southern Movement Assembly as part of his home and legacy and family and work. So what is the SMA? What is the Southern Movement Assembly? We're a formation of organizations who believe that we really need each other to do two things well. One, to protect ourselves and resist this onslaught of oppression and violence that we feel and see every day, the crises that we know, the compounded multi-crisis of climate and state repression and our own bodies as front lines in public health, as gender queer people, as people who are moving through this world and moving across borders. So to protect ourselves and resist oppression, and also to build power, to transform our world for the collective liberation of all people. We believe we need everybody. We need to come together, that no one organization, no individual can do it. We have to do it together. We're stronger together. And we want to share our statement of purpose. We want to be clear who we are, what we do, and what we need from leadership. And we operate by a collective set of principles, and these principles of unity guide us. And we ask that groups and assemblies and organizations commit to these principles as we practice bottom-up movement governance, particularly in times of crisis, when we're needing to make decisions together, but also at all times, and to practice how we want to be together and what we want to expect of one another. So those principles of unity are there in the chat. They're on our website, and they really do bind us as a form of protocol and a politic to resist and build, to stay rooted in history, to lift up the autonomy of local organizations, and that we believe in those organizations as the fundamental building blocks of social movements, and that movements are going to get us free. And so to build people's power, what we believe is that we have to practice governance. And that's the theme and topic of tonight's call on the state of the South. And we believe that governance is a blend of leadership and accountability, decision-making, the development of infrastructure and systems, how to redistribute resources, how to really liberate and practice liberation in our work, in our play, in our family. And two principles that I just want to highlight as we go into, and we'll introduce Nina Morgan, who's going to moderate and lead a roundtable of movement practitioners and organizers and leaders. The two we wanted to highlight is one, rooted in history, and Ruben Solis is here, who's one of the architects of both the People's Movement Assembly as a methodology and the Southern Movement Assembly as a formation that got started in 2012. And we really believe that our history is critical. We need to know what our social movement history has been, where we're coming from, what our legacy is, in order to move forward in strategic ways. And the second principle that we wanted to lift up is community governance itself. And that is rooted in the self-determination of all oppressed peoples, and that we organize with the people most affected. And we believe that people's movement assemblies as an organizing strategy that creates opportunities to practice governance and really exercise our power in decision-making within our communities and on all front lines of struggle. And so we just want to introduce the Southern Movement Assembly and invite you all to be a part of it as we're all organizing assemblies and moving slowly towards, or quickly maybe, towards the Southern Movement Assembly 11. So we have gone 10 rotations of the Southern Movement Assembly as a convergence, but as an organizing process, we continue and we're ongoing throughout the year, and we're really pleased to be with you all tonight and invite folks to be and bring your work and be a part of this broader regional movement building process, and grateful to be able to introduce this family to you all, and I'll pass it to Nina.
Thanks, Steph, and welcome everyone. Good to see so many faces. My name's Nina Morgan. I use she, they pronouns. I'm based here in Birmingham, Alabama, and I work for Project South and represent on the SMA movement, the SMA governance team. And we're not gonna belabor. We're gonna jump right in. The name of the game tonight is People's Movement Governance in the practices in the U.S. And around the world. So we know that fascism is here. There are certain people that are the newest faces of fascism, but it is here and it's been here really since the founding of this country. And it is spreading around. Fascism is spreading around the world, and political parties are not going to save us. And we know that global solidarity is required for our liberation and our vision for a new world, right? And so as things continue to get more and more hectic, as we see our government literally collapse before our very eyes, and institutions and things that are supposed to protect us, we have to take governance into our own hands, we the people, and build a better, more liberated world. So what does it mean to do this? And that's kind of what we're going to explore this evening. So without further ado, I want to make space for our roundtable participants to introduce themselves, and briefly, if y'all don't mind, briefly introduce yourselves, and we'll get right into some questions for the evening. So Mabruka, if you don't mind starting, and then we'll go to Timothy and Ruben.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mabruka Mbarak, pronounced Mabruka. I use she, her pronoun, and I'm zooming from Wabanaki ancestral land. I'm from North Africa, Tunisia. And in my political work, I briefly served in the Tunisian parliament, and I came out of there with a lot of insights, which now I use to share with comrades and movement around the world. I'm honored to be invited here in this space, and I owe this connection to Landria Williams, who knew the importance of building global solidarity and connect, struggle globally. Landria keeps teaching us, even as their ancestors, and I remember them tonight. Thank you.
Ruben.
I'm Ruben Solis, and I'm from South Texas, from a small community named La Gruya, Texas. Very small. Might not even be in the map. But I've been in the movement since 1966, and I came into the movement because a lot was happening during that period, and I've been in it since. And the last stretch has been with the U.S. Social Forum and the Border Social Forum and the World Social Forum and the Social Forum of the Americas, as we try to link local and global struggles together. And in that process, especially with the Southern Movement Assembly, we've tried to hands-on define in practice a new governance, not just a definition of governance, but a new practical application of governance.
Jamel.
Hey everybody, my name is Jamel Campbell Gooch. I'm really excited to be here, coming from Nashville, Tennessee. I'm a 10th generation Nashvilleian. My ancestors were enslaved on the Andrew Jackson Hermitage Plantation. I come to this world as before this, I did street-based mediations between groups that were actually actively harming each other, and through a one-on-one with attorney Erica Perry, who's now our executive director at Southern Movement Committee, I was kind of introduced to this world. Right now, we have a project called the Black Nashville Assembly, where we bring everyday Black folks together, talk about our issues, but then use the assembly structure to organize around our solutions, and then also dictate people outside of that community who want to serve as allies. So I'm really excited to be here, really excited to soak up more game and add to whatever I can add to this conversation.
Thank you. Thanks, y'all. And we're going to jump right into it. I do ask that y'all have brevity, and we get to say what we need to say. So we can have maybe a little bit of time at the end of the discussion for some Q&A from participants. So Ruben, if you don't mind just starting us off and talking about your definition of people's movement governance. And talk a little bit about how you see it in practice.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, and I hope I can add to the debate, discussion, and analysis. The main thing is that in the past, let's just quickly, in the 60s, we were looking at central committee type party leadership and party building movement, okay, across, all colors. Then in the 80s, when Reagan came in and all of the liberation movements of that time basically fell apart or imploded in many ways, we thought we had to dive into our communities in order to survive the repression that we saw coming and to swim with the fish. That is, form local committees. So we started a lot of local committees on environment, on health, on housing, on everything. Then eventually we saw that created a big, massive movement, but very sort of parallel lines of development and not one of convergence. So we needed a way to bring convergence. And the People's Movement Assembly, the Southern Movement Assembly, became a vacuum space that we could invite everybody equally into that space to contribute, participate in a roundtable type participation that would include everybody's thinking, everybody's voice, and everybody's participation in order to capture as much of the essence of an analysis, a synthesis of where we're at and what is our movement. We could not define governance just by defining structure, because we come from that structure, bylaws, articles of incorporation, and we needed something different, radically different, that was about building movement, not building structure. Not that we don't understand structure and the purpose of it. So we needed to define where we're at and this movement, and what is our movement, what is the present situation, in order to correspond with a dialectically corresponding governance. Otherwise, the governance would not fit the shoe, and so it become burdensome in order to carry the structure on top of us, rather than building the movement horizontally and still coordinating, communicating, and making decisions. So governance is not a structure, but a process, one of convergence and of thought and action, one of consensus for decision making. And so that's what the hardest part, because everybody wanted to vote. So how do you not vote and still make decisions that are ironclad decisions? And so how do we build the movement is the principal question. And so what is the movement right now when all these changes are happening? I think we need to really take SMA 11 into that space and define what is the present situational moment and what should be the corresponding governance that accompanies that movement. Thank you. That's it.
That's it. Thank you so much, Ruben. Yeah, governance is not a structure, but a process. I really appreciated that that clarification and the just description of that process, of the convergence, of the ways that people make decisions by consensus. I want to shift us you know, as we kind of have this framing, Ruben, that you provided, to really kind of open up with some examples of people's movement governance from a global perspective. And really, this is Mabruka coming towards you, but yeah, share those examples from your experience, and if you could talk about why global analysis is important, especially in this time that we find ourselves in right now. And what are the things that myself and others on this call, what are the things that we can learn? What possibilities might you know, learning from global governance, people's governance processes, what possibilities might that open up for us here?
You know, that's a great question. And, you know, the necessity to connecting with global issues and learning from movement around the world, it's not a strategy. It's not a strategic choice. It's a historical imperative. You all remember maybe reading Cedric Robinson when he talked about that's the, you know, racial capitalism. That's how it operates, right? The exploitation and domination of Black people and other oppressed communities around the world. It's not incidental to capitalism. It's actually foundational to its existence, right? Thus, our analysis cannot be geographically or conceptually limited. And just as our practice of intersectionality, we have to recognize that there are multiple oppression that overlaps and reinforce themselves. And so from the transatlantic slave trade, the ongoing extraction of resources of the global south, as you all know, which is then the wealth is amassed by the capitalist bourgeoisie in the global north, this is all tied to the oppression of many communities. And, you know, Walter Rodney really explained it, that the exploitation of Africa led to this wealth to Europe, right? So our movement for justice, equality, and freedom must take into account these global dynamics of underdevelopment and imperialism. And let me, you know, I remember I watched the previous call, and there was a compelling discussion on the importance of understanding how the Zionist states, for example, ethnic cleansing of Palestine, inform the training of police here in the United States. And this connection is, you know, critical example that how global and local oppression are intertwined, right? Even Angela Davis talked about it. The militarization of the U.S., the police is linked to the militarization of the Israeli state, the Zionist state. So this actually, to understand all of this, it helps us to how to organize and how to do better governance, in fact. So, and also to come up with the right solution, because some of those solutions we might find for our community might oppress other communities. So I'll give you a quick example. If we want, for example, if the United States, you want to defend a socialist program, well, if that socialist program is funded by the plunder of Africa, that's not something we can do. So you see that we have to kind of think about all of this. In terms of practically, in terms of governance, what it means that, so let me give you an example. Right after the Tunisian Revolution in 2011, so in my group, we ended up forming a political party, right? But right as we were organizing, well, the imperial power were also organizing with the G7, the IMF, and the World Bank. And, you know, we were, once I was in parliament, we were bombarded with these like laws, IMF conditions and loans, and suddenly it becomes very technocratic and you lose track, but your movement is here and you have to connect all the time. But the one thing that really helped us is to get out of Tunisia and to talk with comrades from other African countries. And we're like, oh my God, they're doing exactly the same thing as they're doing to you, right? And African military bases are mushrooming in Africa. And so when we talk, we realize that therefore our strategy has to be together. For a long time, we did not understand, for example, the French government was trying to pressure free trade agreement with a lot of countries, and we saw what they were doing to the Moroccans and to the Tunisian, and they were kind of like pitting each other against each other, you know. So so that's kind of like in practicality how what it means really to connect. But also I just wanted to say, if we don't connect, we won't see the mechanics of imperialism. That's how imperialism hides. So we really have to connect the global struggle in order to really see what's going on and to have better solution, right? And I can give more example if we have time, and talk about other, how to practically do that in another question if you'd like, so I can pass on to someone else to talk.
Thank you, Mabruka. And really quick, before we go to this next question, when y'all say like the people, y'all are talking about everyday people, right? Like everyday people that want better for their lives and their condition, right? So governance in your minds is accessible to anybody, correct? Right? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, Brother Jamel. So we want to shift to really connect this to what you're doing with the Nashville Assembly, and kind of talk about the work that you're doing, what governance looks like on the day-to-day, and share just some Southern-based examples or other models of people's governance that you see.
For sure. Thank you for that. Yeah, we use we use our Black National Assembly as like not only a co-governance tool or a consensus building tool or campaign development tool, but we also use it as a base building operation, right? Because we try to invite, like you said, everyday working class folks into the Black Nashville Assembly so we can develop them politically, ideology, but also plug in them into strategic campaigns that will change their material conditions, right? Because it's through that changing of those material conditions, through those campaigns, that we can start building that momentum for the base where bigger and bolder ideas can actually hold. And so
if you don't mind, could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll talk about a specific campaign that we recently had called the Varsity Spending Plan. So the Black Nashville Assembly, when we started doing this right on the onset of the George Floyd uprisings, we started bringing everyday folks together. And of course, as a base building organization, kids start coming around. So that became a natural call to start investing into our young people. So now we also have a sibling organization called the Youth Assembly, right? And so recently, both of those groups started collectivizing their analysis that they wanted something to keep them safe that was an alternative to the police, right? We went through a lot of analysis, a lot of meetings, a lot of structured conversations, and we kind of landed on wanting to really double down on investing in restorative justice, but in a way that's more operational and developed by our local government. And because of that, these two groups, the Black National and the Youth Assembly, came together and really went down and to intervene on our local budget. So through their participation in that civics process, whether it was putting pressure on elected officials, tabling at events, building out the base by flyering, door knocking, all the old school stuff, phone calls, phone banking, they were able to come together and really get off the ground the country's first Office of Youth Safety that will serve as an alternative to police and an alternative to courts. And we're still in that development, and our members are still walking alongside the implementation of that to make sure it doesn't turn into something, like we all know, that is absorbed by the system and actually used to increase our incarceration. But that has been something that we have done using the assembly to really collectivize our analysis, dictate our solutions through campaigns, which our campaigns have a material win attached to them, and then use that material win to then go door to door and be like, yo, this assembly structure did this thing that has changed your life. Would you like to come to the next assembly and do more, right? And by doing that, we also spread out the responsibility and spread out the effort so people are really learning what it means to participate in this co-governance model.
Awesome. I wonder, and we have a few extra minutes before we shift to engage in our Q&A. I wonder for anyone who feels called to answer what the role of political alignment has been. Something that I think about a lot when I think about people's movement governance is that we're bringing, people from, who might have different systems of belief together to build this analysis to then like exert power and move us to wherever we need to go. And so I wonder what the role of political alignment has been in you all's work, and how do we actually resist division as we work to reclaim and advance these governance projects? And that's open to anyone. Mm-hmm.
I'll take a little stab at it. We had a problem organizing on the US-Mexico border because you're organizing around two countries. Even though many of the people may be Mexican of origin, indigenous, but they're in different cultures. And we were also organizing with indigenous folks that were Dene, Navajo, and others. And we were working with Chinese and Korean garment workers out of the Bay Area. And we were trying to create a unity of movement and governance between that. And so we had to come up with the idea of breaking the US-Mexico border into 6 different binational corridors that were linking California and Baja California, Sonora, Mexico, and Arizona, Chihuahua and El Paso and Texas and New Mexico, and then Texas and Coahuila and then so all the corridors signified that we were one people divided by an imperialist border. So that brought us together because before people were saying we don't live in the same reality, we don't have the same problems, we don't even speak the same languages. So we had to break it down in a way that would bring that reality to them. So we developed the PMA process in order to create one picture of our reality. And we agreed that it was one set of picture, it was one problem, binational. So we created 6 different campaigns with campaign coordinators. And so the real governance was the campaign coordinatorship and the campaign. The board of directors was just that, sort of for legal status and all that, standing, financial and otherwise. So that idea of creating a new reality that broke down the present reality gave us an understanding that was totally different and empowered us to govern our movement and build it. So then what do you do when you have 1,500, 2,000 people in an assembly? How do you break it down to have everybody participate?
Right.
So that's where the questions of governance gets complicated. You need convergence of thinking to solve all those challenges.
Thank you, Ruben.
If I can just add one thing about like the Black National Assembly real fast is our assembly structure, like we use it to build members, and we have essentially like 4 pillars, political pillars that hold up our assembly structure that are non-negotiable when it comes to presenting solutions. For example, right? We talk about how we are an abolitionist assembly, right? So we don't offer solutions to problems that reinforce the police or prisons, right? So if someone comes to the assembly with that, our members have kind of trained in a way that they could gently push back on those things, right? Just to kind of make sure that the assembly doesn't turn into something that just reinforces the status quo. So we try to use our 4 pillars and train our members on our 4 pillars. So to kind of safeguard, but also help people to develop their politics because they're not coming in knowing those things, right? About how abolition will actually help people, right? So that's kind of how we try to walk that fine line of how do we keep the bar low for everyday folks, but how do we also make sure that we're not re-entrenching the status quo?
Word. Mabruka, did you want to get in on the question?
Yeah, let me chime in because for sure we had so many issues, you know, in Tunisia. And again, like I come from movement, then I ended up being elected really like it was a bizarre experience and went back to the movement. So I kind of saw kind of in all direction, like what's happening and the issues. And you're right, when you said elected, you know, political party cannot save us, but actually we should not, we should occupy all spaces. The most important thing is we need to, again, understand that there are many systems of oppression that hits us. You know, patriarchy, colonialism, racism, imperialism, etc. And so we need to recognize that some of us and some of our movement will experience certain contradiction more accurately than others. And so what do we do then?
Break that down, Mabruka. Break that down.
Let me break that down. Yes. So a lot of the issues that we have when we do a movement is that we're going to have some disagreement. In fact, these disagreement, they are not like disagreement, they are contradiction. For me, something that really helped our movement is to understand what the contradiction is. And then to first of all, do not embody the contradiction because it will make you sick. Talk with everybody and identify the contradiction. Let's just face it, we live in a capitalist system. None of us wants to do that. Most of us are tied to wage labor. That's not what we wanted, but here we are, and it's really complicated, but let's recognize it so we don't embody that, you know, disease and sickness. So it's important that we take that conversation, right? Within our movement, there's going to be a problem. My political party, men took more spaces, you know, and my experience, I resonated. I read the biography of Claudia Jones, and my goodness, I resonated so much. But I'm not going to take that contradiction, that problem, and take it out in the public because that's going to be weaponized against my movement, right? But at the same time, I should not be silenced, right? Or we should not. So it's all actually a work in progress of identifying contradiction and sorting them out. And you're going to have a primary contradiction and a lower contradiction because, and this is the most important thing, there is a political economy of movement communication. Whatever message we pull out, we broadcast, and the medium we choose, even globally, can be weaponized against us. Venezuela is a case on point right now, right? And so it's complex. And this is why we need to accept there's different contradiction. And just because I think these two, and this is why like I really like the example Jamal talked about there are then agreement, like we are not going to have any solution that adds more police, right? Or that contradiction about the settler colonial border. And just I want to finish with an example that is happening right now. And I offer this example with grace, right? I want to make sure I am not indigenous from this land. So I want to make sure I say this. But there are a group of Indigenous people in Canada who are now petitioning the state of Vermont to not recognize communities who are self-identifying as Indigenous people. And they're taking this to the governors. My problem here, right, and I'm just thinking as I'm offering this more really with grace, is that by doing this, you are reinforcing the power of settler colony, right? Instead of dealing within these people about, you know, the recognition issue and people who are pretending or pretendants, right? The issue here is you have a lot of white scholars who are doing a lot of research showing that the people in Vermont are not Indigenous. And so the focus is now, are these people Indigenous or not? Instead, the focus should be these white settlers shouldn't be even here in the first place. You know what I mean? Or like, let's discuss them, you know, that part. So the thing is, it reinforces the settler colony. So sometimes when we are doing fight, you are reinforcing imperialism. This is why, and this is kind of complex, this is why one of the key is to talk with each other. And we might not agree, but then we need to identify your primary contradiction might not be my first. My first primary, I am an I'm an anti-imperialist, and I believe firmly this is my first fight. But I'm also an anti-racist, anti-colonization. But however, this group in Canada, their primary contradiction is probably recognition, right? And so I should, because I should not be criticizing, I have already extended communication with them and discussion so we can take that discussion between us and talk as global movement against imperialism. Does it make sense? I wanted you to give you an example to show how complex it is. There's no answer, but in the political practice, we are already, even though we don't talk about it, we're practicing identifying contradiction, being okay with those, and trying to sort them out to be more strategic in our solutions and movement forward. Thank you. Sorry, I was a little long.
No, Mabruka. Yes,
just to add to that, there's an inherent contradiction between civil rights and liberation, because they're not always in the same alignment. If we look at the border, the U.S.-Mexico border, and we recognize it, in order to gain civil rights as Mexican Americans in the U.S., we're recognizing the legitimacy of that imperialist border that was born through war and occupation, you know? And so then we would end up supporting Israel and the Zionists because they have the right to the land, no? We see the example here, for example. But it's a very deep contradiction. And so how do we develop it in terms of that debate with that other side? Yeah.
Potentially using a people's movement assembly process to unpack that contradiction. Yeah, thank y'all so much. I want to shift us. I'm feeling very electric. I'm feeling like I want to start jumping up and down and waving my arms, but I won't do that. But I do want to open it up. I'm seeing a lot of resonance and thoughts in the chat. So if any one attending wants to come off mute and ask, you know, our panel a question, or if there's anything that may have resonated that you just want to uplift, please feel free to do that as well. But just inviting anyone who feels moved to come off of mute and share a question or a comment, something that resonated with you.
Hi, Nina. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share. Timothy here in Nashville, Tennessee. I have a question for the entire panel, but specifically for Jamel, I wanted to ask a question about implementation. And so we were talking a little bit about like making our movements more practical, more easily accessible for all people and community. What have you found as a tool, like a strategy for how to engage folks who might be feeling a sense of overwhelm in this political moment, you know, not knowing how the elections are going to turn out? How do you continually inspire and encourage members of the community not to just be moved by election cycles, but to be moved by the issues that matter to them?
For sure. Thank you for that, Tim. I think three things kind of come to mind. First, I think our folks who have grown cynical need a material win. They need something, right? It's like, as an organizer, which means that I bring people into organization, it's easier to bring people into organization when we can point to a material win, no matter how small, right? Because people want to know, how can my participation in this actually change my life? And I think that connection is a very simple one if you can get a win. Second, one thing that we've learned, even in developing people's political ideologies or orientation to politics, is by having community dinners where we literally are talking about what is happening in local government, right? Exploring people's general curiosity that they don't have a lot of space to explore. Before even getting into the deeper things around patriarchy, Black queer feminism, colonization, we start exactly with where they are and what's affecting them, right? One analogy that we try to continuously use is everything outside of your window is dictated by a policy. If your road is not good, if you don't have stop signs, or if the lights don't work in your community, there is a policy thing that is happening there. And because there's a policy thing, there's a person that we can target to change that, right? So basic campaign things. And through that, participating in those campaigns, through developing that collective analysis, people, in my experience, find themselves and find hope that they will be here in the future because they have the ability to dictate their surroundings. I know that sounds really simple, but that has been our experience at the Black National Assembly. When we have had wins and been able to connect those wins to people's material conditions, our base has continuously grown. That means that we can take on larger campaigns and we can build more power amongst people and not corporations.
Thank you so much. We have time for one more question or comment for anyone who wants to come off mute or put it in the chat and I can read it aloud.
Can I give a question and a comment?
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, my comment is that I think that what Ruben was saying about cohesion and bringing, you know, all these different parallel works together to work together made a lot of sense. And so when we talk about self-governance, I feel like, or we talk about movement governance, you know, like I think it's kind of like a collective level of like maybe self-control, like discipline, like being able to um coordinate as a movement and not just be chaotic in every direction, right? But my question would be, because it's another thing, what is governance, people's governance of a society, like throwing off this form of government and a self-governance from the bottom up. So with that, like we've tried to do people's assembly type of things before here in Atlanta, and it's come down to, you know, doing lots of outreach and many groups come together and look at each other and go, wow, you know, we're not the people, right? So how do you get over that initial inertia of if at first we're just wanting to start something, no one's there, there's no power there, why do we get people to start wanting to come? And why do the decisions made there start to matter?
Well, they say if you start a movement, people will come, and it's true. If you have organization, people gather. It's a human nature. If we don't have organization, then we're all individually loose, and that cohesion of thinking, that consensus of thinking, or convergence of action and thinking doesn't see its day. So we start with, I think something like the brother Jamel is, what is your frontline struggle? You know, what is affecting you now, right now? You know, it's important to us. And we do a round robin where everybody speaks. Nobody passes up. Nobody says, no, I don't have nothing to say. Everybody has something to say. That's why you're here. So we have to practice governance because we don't know democracy. We don't know how it works. We've never been part of it, and we've always been left. So if we don't start that exercise slowly and build up over a long period of time, then we don't have the strength to hold on when the onslaught, when the repression comes down. The Palestinians wouldn't be holding up if they didn't have organization and governance. I can tell you that.
Thank you, Ruben. Mabruka and Jamel, I'm going to ask y'all to maybe share one brief comment, and then we're going to move to close out the call. Thank you.
Yeah, no, just wanted to say that absolutely the practice actually bring clarity, so we can get smarter together, understand better what is going on, and it is not easy, but the difficulty is what makes us actually smarter in a way as a collective, because at each contradiction we understand better. In fact, what helps us to understand what's going on is to see this tension, and we need to, basically what I'm saying is, coming together might not be to fix the issue, but to provide more clarity and most importantly, really to connect, because the historical process of colonialism and slavery and capitalism it works by isolating us, right? So uprooting us, displacing us, killing us, but also dividing us into nuclear families that's not even natural to be divided like this. So by creating a movement, we're also creating a community, right? And we reconnect not only between us human, but we also have to reconnect with the land. And the reconnecting with the land does not mean we're just going to take the land. It's not sufficient. It's really to reconnect that earth, that land's intelligence that tells us, it gives us information, that how we enter in a dialectical relationship with it, you know. And this is what the movement does. It's not really, it's for us to grow together. And it's really worth, and somebody wrote in the chat, there is camaraderie, and there's something beautiful about it. I know a lot of revolutionary, they sound cheesy because they talk about love, but I swear to you, like, the struggle is beautiful. You meet incredible people, and you grow with humility, you know. It's beautiful. It's worth doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mabruka.
And just briefly, I think like what attracted us to the assembly structure is the science of it, right? It's like you have the ability to get an understanding and a perspective of what's happening naturally, collectivize the analysis, but then you also get an opportunity to refine and continue to struggle, try something, and then refine it again. So what I would say, if something is not working, that's just a place to develop and refine and just do the most simple thing. I think a lot of times, sometimes these things become overly complicated in a way where everyday people cannot participate. But I think if we refine it all the way down to its simplest form of relationship, one-on-one community events, I think we can actually build the momentum and the clarity that it takes to actually solve generational problems.
Thank you so much for that, Jamil. Thank you again to everybody. I hope we can do a part 2 and bring y'all back again. This is well worth it, well worth your time, and absolutely beautiful. So thank y'all so much. The struggle is beautiful and absolutely worth it. It's changed my life for sure. So with that, I want to move us into close, and thank you again to wonderful panelists, and this roundtable is absolutely excellent. So Saskia, I'm going to pass it to you to move us into next steps and close. And thanks so much. Oh, Natalie Nia, excuse me.
No worries, no worries. Thank you all so much. That was an amazing panel. Yeah, I'm just listening with so much richness that came from this. And this is a good time to be together. And yeah, now this year we've been rocking out. We started out by building and understanding what a PMA is when our organizing school. We went into the summer. People have been doing their summer of assemblies. So shout out to y'all. Let us know if you did a summer assembly this summer. Just drop it in the chat. Let us know what you did, who you built with, what it gave. Oh, also, I'm Natalie Neopak. I'm with Alternate Roots. You share pronouns. I was like, yes, let's talk about the SMA 11. And so, yeah, we've learned what a PA is. We've studied together. We put that into action. And now, y'all, it's time to learn, take all the learnings from those actions and create collective strategy. So in a few weeks, September 26th through the 29th in Little Rock, Arkansas, shout out to Arkansas. We'll be there hosting the SMA 11, y'all. And our goals are very, very clear. We're going to bring people in who have been doing all of the beautiful work all across the South to create shared strategy rooted in political, addressing, the rising fascism, addressing this current ecological moment, addressing this time in our houses and our spirits and our minds, where things are coming at us from all different sides, right? And so what does it mean for someone who is working on abolitionist work, for someone who is working in nature and to be in harmony with the land, who are working with trans folks, or for someone who just wants to make sure that their people can eat healthy food? What does it mean for all those people to come in one space together and collectively build strategy that is intersectional? And so when you get there, because you should definitely come through, this year's a little different. We're inviting people from delegations all across the South. And of course, you can only bring 2. Don't bring your whole organization because we cannot do that. We're not going to feed y'all. I'm like, no. Now we're going to feed y'all. We're going to feed y'all. So we'll come together, y'all, in September. And what we'll really do is have time to share what happened during the summer, share what's going on the ground, and kind of name how we take care of ourselves and our people. Today is the last day to register, so if you have not registered, get on it now. After this call, they will be selecting the applicants immediately, so do it now. Joking, of course, we'll take your late things. And if you can't make it to the SMA, y'all, there's plenty of other ways to be part of the movement that we have here. You can join a work team, which I definitely encourage you to do. And basically, after all that learning together, all of the collective strategy building, we'll leave with a fortified understanding of what's happening across the land, how we want to have a robust response to it, and what does it mean to do all of those things with all of our front lines in mind. And if you don't make it, make sure you come through on October 30th for our next SMA, our State of the South call. We only do one SMA this year. Come to our next State of the South call, y'all. And just to kind of tie back why we do the SMA, there are a few things that feels really important to me around increasing our understanding of how do we assess what's happening on the ground and use our lived experiences to create solutions that feel emergent and in real time. We know that still is sharp and still. So if I know you're working on reproductive rights over there in Texas, and I know I'm working on body autonomy in Louisiana, I know there's going to be some crossover lessons that we could then use to show up for each other and to strengthen our strategies. The last thing I want to say, y'all, is it feels good to know that even though I'm from an arts and cultural organization, that I can talk about climate justice just a little bit because I know a homie when I went to a BAM training, or because I know someone from Taproot. It feels good to know that I can connect the oppressions and systemic things that are happening in our lives together with other people's struggles. And that means I'm going to more likely show up for their struggle when I'm creating my demands and my campaigns and what victory feels like. That means it's going to include reproductive rights. And so what we're really doing is creating a broad-based intersectional strategy that can create change on a broader level. And most importantly, at SMA 11, we're gonna cut up. We're gonna have a good time. I'll be out there shaking for the guys. I'll be out there giving all the hugs. I'll be out there making sure that we're breathing who we need to breathe, remembering who we need to remember. And mostly it's a homecoming to continue to do and organize in the Black radical tradition, to continue to maintain our wholeness and the wholeness of our kindred. And then just a good time for us to y'all do the damn thing. So this is gonna be a political election year, and we know that not only will we need collective intersectional strategy, but we'll also need fortified spirits. And so it feels real good to give someone a hug you ain't seen in a year. So all that to be said, we would love to have y'all come through to SMA 11. Make sure you do the registration now. And thank y'all so much for coming tonight. Y'all take care of yourselves. Y'all be well. I want you to get some canes. Lou, did I miss anything?
No, you did it, baby. Got it.
Y'all be well, okay?
Thank you all. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Great.
Y'all, peace.
Come off mute and just say bye and love on each other. Much love, y'all.
Thank you, everyone.
Hi, folks.
Peace, comrades. Free the land.
Peace.
Thank y'all.
Free the land and free Palestine.
Yes.
Rest, drink some water, take a nap.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, y'all. Take care.
Thanks, Lou. Thanks, interpreters. Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thanks, y'all.